Welcome back to Speaking of Strong Style, where we discuss the news, issues, and events surrounding New Japan Pro Wrestling. I'm Steven Conway. With me, as always, Jeremy Finestone. We are contributors to the Fight Game Media Network. We are now 4 days into Best of the Super Juniors 30. This has been an absolutely wonderful tournament, but we have a full schedule of things to talk about today on the show. We do. The past shows from Best of the Super Juniors. We have the future shows coming up. Resurgence is coming up this week. There has just been so much going on. We talked about it last week that we were going to hit the ground running, and we will. We've got a lot to talk about.
At least the shows have been good, man, right? At least the shows have been freaking great.
They've really been wonderful. And Colin and Brad are here. We're glad to see you guys. Glad for everybody that's tuning in to the show today. We're happy to see you all. And very, very general thoughts before we plunge into all this here, Jeremy. The first 4 shows have been wonderful. This has just been so much fun. And the tournament has a lot of variation. It has a lot of variety. It has a little bit of everything. We've done wonderful work on that. But the thing that stands out to me the most are the new guys. The 4 people that are having their first tournaments have blended in beautifully. Kevin Knight, Leo Rush, Mike Bailey, Dan Maloney. These guys, last year we saw Ace Austin and Alex Zane, who are both really good. I think this year it's even better, and maybe by a good distance, because we're seeing some very special stuff here. And we have the veterans who are all having good tournaments. There really haven't been very many bad matches at all, and we've seen 40 of them so far, and I probably have enjoyed 38 of them. What do you think? I'm just having a blast.
I'm guessing you're giving it 2 thumbs up right now. Yeah, I too am giving it 2 thumbs up. The shows have been crisp. The matches have not gone longer than they needed to. They've told the stories that they needed to. The booking for the tournament itself, we got the layout for how the matches have been progressing. We'll go through it as we go. But there seems to be logic to all of this. And some days it's one person's game to win, and other days it's not Kevin Knight or Clark Connor or whoever it is. There's something in here for everybody to enjoy. The shows haven't gone longer than 3 hours. If you need to fast forward in between, you've got 2-hour shows. Highly recommend jumping into this Best of the Super Juniors. But if you can't, we're here to catch up.
It's true. And this has been really interesting with the way it's been booked. Everybody seems to have something to do. Everyone has their own little mini stories, even if they aren't in contention. And I'm thinking about how Yo, for instance, has been using other people's trademark moves in his matches. Other guys from Hantai and Chaos. You've got Clark Connors with his own thing going there with that we're going to talk about in a little while. We've got Ryusuke Taguchi deciding he's going to play it straight and not clown around.
At least for a little while.
But everybody has something going. And we've seen Kushida, who I feel like, when we're going to talk about his progression in this tournament, which I feel like is about to pick up, started rough, but his whole thing is grappling. He's using the jiu-jitsu that he worked on a lot because WWE wasn't using him most weeks. So he had a lot of time to train, but he's using more grappling techniques in his matches. And even the people that we don't expect to be involved in the semifinals and the finals have something going on. And it's made for a very entertaining, fast-paced tournament. And I'm really, really impressed with the work that they're doing with it.
So Brad Ryder writes, I haven't been blown away by Bologna, but the other 3 debuts have been outstanding.
Debutantes,
apparently, yes. I wasn't sure how to pronounce it, so I just went with the debuts. The simple man's way of saying it. Maloney, I was speaking with Ryder about this earlier, but he's a little bit of a cipher, and I don't get what he is just yet, other than a guy in United Empire. So we shall see what that is. But let me ask you this: are we going to start with the tallies up to this point, or should we just start at the beginning?
Well, let's start at the beginning. Let's roll through these things, then we'll get to where the standings are at the end, if that's all right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're also going to be talking about Resurgence. We're going to be talking some news and notes. And there was something before we get into these, though, Jeremy, you wanted to mention something, and I wanted to get it out of the way because I'm worried that we're going to run out of time at the end.
Oh, okay.
But, the whole thing about coming up, we're going to be having not historic crossover, but Forbidden Door. We're going to be having this Wembley Stadium show. You had some interesting thoughts, I thought, on how Kazuchika Okada might be involved in this, and we didn't get a chance. Jeremy and I don't talk in heavy detail off the air between shows because we want to keep it fresh while we're on here. So he hasn't shared all
for the show, bro.
Yeah, exactly. So tell me what you're thinking as far as with the Don Callis turn. You're thinking Kenny Omega might recruit Okada to help him?
So you've ever seen the meme of Charlie from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia with the poster board and all the connective tissues, and he's just got his head right here, and he's just like, "Do you see what I see?" That's kind of how I feel
Sunny. I didn't know that. I know that meme, but I didn't know it was from Always Sunny. I've never watched Always Sunny.
You either seen it or you haven't, and I understand if you haven't seen it, it's not for everybody. But there's a lot going on here. So I got this image right here, but I'm going to pull this other quote up that came out with Sports Illustrated today, actually. In an interview with Sports Illustrated that was published on Tuesday, Omega left the door open to team with Okada again. Omega said he had fun working with Okada at New Year's Dash and wouldn't mind having his back in the future. The exact quote, "I wouldn't be so quick to scratch his name off the list of guys I wouldn't help. Our match together was a wild card draft. It was a fun time. It felt to me like we had our thing. Our thing is done." I've said it before, Okada is very sharp. He is who he is for a reason. I had a lot of fun teaming with him in New Japan and Dash, so I wouldn't strike that off the list of potential people who I wouldn't mind having there. Back.
Okay.
So, what do we have at Resurgence? We have a 6-man match with Okada, Rocky Romero, and Ishii versus Wheeler Yuta, Shota Umino, and Jon Moxley.
Probably to set up something at Dominion, we're thinking.
Correct. But there is a stopping point on the way of Double or Nothing in which Jon Moxley also presumably may be having a match with Kenny Omega. And in the past, that match has been a 5-on-5, and we have not quite figured out who the 5th man might be on either side. So if we were to look into Double or Nothing and think maybe that was a precursor to Forbidden Door in another way, in which we might see Moxley and Okada, face off in some way, shape, or form after their Dominion match, in which they have a title match in which Tanahashi, Ishii, and Okada will be facing Moxley, Shota Umino, and a player to be named. There is a lot on the board here that could give someone the idea that Okada could be in play for AEW programming sooner rather than later, and it might not just be for Forbidden Door. What do you think about that?
I mean, I'm interested to see it. I think that can go a lot of different ways. A lot of it depends on the New Japan schedule and how that all is going to pan out. But it could. I mean, it's. I would like to see Okada in a bigger spot than just being the 5th guy in a 10-man tag match there. But it's something that might work out. And, we'll have to see how it turns out. I mean, they're going somewhere with Don Callis and right. Omega. Of course, that's going to be a big feud. I'm sure Callis is going to be recruiting people to send after Kenny. So that won't be Okada, but it could be various other people that might involve some New Japan talent. So who knows?
So earlier in the year, we talked and we thought that Ospreay, Omega, Okada, and Jay White would all be doing this dance with each other throughout the year. Jay White, for some reason, way, shape, and form, has been taken off that board. But, you could have Moxley in there instead. But all these things, there might be leading to bigger things here or there. This could just be the beginning of Okada's longer involvement, given that he's not in the main event picture of New Japan Pro Wrestling right now. That could be the reason. And using him as a main focus with AEW and the cooperation that's heading this summer, it makes a lot of sense to me. So let's keep our eyes open on that, because that's just kind of my wild, crazy theories of everything that could be happening.
All right, we're about to get into Super Juniors big time now, so just something to keep in mind for everybody. This will be available as a podcast. Whether you're on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to us. If you're on a podcast, give us a little bit of feedback. 5-star review always helps people find the show, so any help in that direction is appreciated. And check out other stuff on the Fight Game Media Network as well. We got a lot of good shows out there for you. So just a little reminder there and some housekeeping before we continue. Now,
thank you for all the rates and reviews.
Yes, definitely so. Now we got to get into Best of Super Juniors. So this is going to be just like Super Juniors is a bit of a turbo boost show. This is going to shows. These are going to be the same for us. We have to get through these quickly. There's a lot to do here, but we're going to cover our favorite stuff. So it began on Korakuen Hall, the Best of Super Juniors 30. And packed in 1,401 in Korakuen Hall on the 12th. And the first match of the whole tournament was Clark Connors and Kevin Knight. There it is on your screen if you're watching on YouTube. And Clark Connors, of course, now with Bullet Club and with Ghetto at ringside. Now, that's something not everybody at Bullet Club gets. So it shows you that they're taking this very seriously. Similar to Finlay, he's working a more aggressive style. And he has a brainbuster move that's called the No Chaser now. And that's how he defeated Kevin Knight to open up the tournament. He got the first 2 points of the tournament, and then afterwards beat down Kevin Knight with a chair just to set up both his viciousness and to put a little bit of weakness into Kevin Knight for people to exploit going forward. But nice start to the tournament, 9 minutes, 20 seconds there, and we were off and running.
A recurring theme is Clark Connors is going to be using that chair in a number of ways after matches. He's been my nickname, the Spearmint Rhino, and I'm going to get it out there right now. He is my pick to potentially win this whole thing. So when we discuss him, keep that in mind.
Brad mentions, and we're going to get to the other comments too, as they as we get to the matches that they're talking about. Am I the only one thinking the No Chaser looks too close to Death Rider? It's a Death Rider. It's pretty much the Death Rider. Yeah, you're right. And there are only so many moves, I guess, but there have been some innovations in this one, and we'll get to it. First really, really good match of the tournament, I thought, though, was the next one. It was Taiji Ishimori and Ryusuke Taguchi. Now, like I mentioned, that Taguchi has, for whatever reason, sworn he's going to play it straight out of respect to the tournament. We'll see how long that lasts, but no clowning. And I tell you what, the fans in Korakuen Hall were there for it. They were kind of excited at the idea. I've mentioned it before. There was the serious match Taguchi and the clown Taguchi in the past. We haven't seen serious match Taguchi much at all, and we're getting it here. This was a good match. It was only 3 minutes and 45 seconds, but it was really good, and the fans seem to enjoy this version of it. Taguchi just pretty much dominated this thing all the way, but through a little twist of fate, he ended up in the bone lock for a submission and lost. But 3 minutes, 45 seconds, and I think probably 3.5 minutes of it was Taguchi on top. He was pretty much dominating this one, but it looked good, and I think the fans were into it, and it set the tone. So Ishimori having a strong tournament so far. We're going to talk about that, and that was Taguchi.
A lot of reminders that Ishimori had a super strong 2022 and hasn't been defeated all that much. So he's going to take a few losses, and when he does in the Super Juniors, it's going to be kind of a big deal. As for Taguchi, he may not win a whole lot, but if his story is just regaining a little bit of respect from the crowd, from the kind of BS that he had in the past, and he gets to a somewhat serious base again, that's a net positive for everybody involved. And I hope that is the story that we have with him.
There we go. And the next one was Dan Maloney and getting his first win. Of course, the new guys needed to go over early just to establish that they were worth something there, because not very few people in New Japan, including me, really knew a lot about Maloney. I can't say that I know a ton about him either, and Colin has the point. Yeah, I have no clue who Maloney is. He's a terrific British wrestler. He's good at what he does. It's a very tough league he has just entered right here. I mean, he jumps in there with guys like Desperado and Hiromu Takahashi and Ishimori, and then you have like Mike Bailey, who made a bigger first impression, I think, than Maloney did last year. To be fair, Alex Zane had a bad first match. Didn't think it was very good at all. And then he picked up momentum as the tournament went on. He got used to the style, maybe the jet lag and all that stuff cleared up for him. And by the end of it, Zane was doing really well. I think we're going to see that at Maloney as he gets more comfortable in the New Japan ring and the New Japan style. He got a win over Bushi in his first match. He has a gore, a spear, that is apparently gifted to him by Rhino himself. So there you have it. You can't get a bigger endorsement on a spear than Rhino. And then he has a move that looks like the old school backbreaker, back before backbreakers were torture racks, when you just kind of heaved him over your shoulder, and then he drops it into a pile driver, which is a pretty devastating looking move. It's called the Killer Driller.
Yeah,
he's the driller, Dan Maloney. It's a good looking move. He gave it to Bushi and won.
He to me looks like a mean version of Rick Martel, and I think he might actually be as tall as him. He's got a lean frame. He's a blank slate to me.
Yeah.
Like there's I don't know what I need to see from him to develop an opinion, but right now he's cardboard and he's talented. He's a good looking piece of cardboard. Like he's a good talented piece of cardboard, but I don't have any reason to be invested right now. Like there's nothing in addition to what he is giving to me as a guy really trying to prove he belongs there, and he needs to just belong there. I don't know if that makes any sense.
He's a guy in the tournament, right? And there has to be those guys in the tournament there. Not everybody is going to be either at the top or the bottom. He's probably going to finish one of these guys that gets there and has either a winning record by one match or a losing record by one match, 5-4, 4-5 type of guy. But that's fine. He's going to get the right people, the right points, and he'll take away points from the correct people at the right time.
Right now, he's a guy that he's trying to prove that he belongs at the dance, and everyone's already decided he does.
Yeah. But, his job, I thought about this before the tournament. Mm-hmm. They need to get Mike Bailey wins because no one really knew who he was.
Sure.
In New Japan, and but they had an idea of taking him seriously. So he needs wins. Kevin Knight and Dan Maloney just have to have good matches. I think that will help their career in New Japan more than anything else. Just have good matches. They don't have to win them in order to further their careers with New Japan. They just have to perform well. And I think Bailey needs more than that. I think Bailey, if he just came in and went 5-4, he would be impressive, but then everyone just kind of go, he kind of finished in the middle of the pack. So I think he needs the victories booking wise, whereas I think Maloney and Knight can lose, and as long as they wrestle well, it will help them a lot. So and then we already know that Lio Rush is going to be in this to the very end. We knew that before the tournament. We sure as hell know it after the 4 shows we've seen.
The other thing with Maloney is that I just may need to see him have reps with the other United Empire guys. He came in, we were all told he was a United Empire guy, but he does the hand movement and it just doesn't feel like I've seen it incorporated into the big picture. And until I see that, maybe there's just a disconnect for me. Maybe he's doing great.
And some of it is like his first 3 matches, Kanemaru, Bushi, Yo, who are all fine, capable workers, but he hasn't had the match with the guy yet either. So I think his best matches in this tournament are still to go because a lot of that has to do with who your opponent is. And most of the best wrestlers, very best wrestlers in that block are still to come for Maloney.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to see his better performances as he rolls along. So I'm taking the patient route, especially after Alex Zane last year, who got off to that rough start and then improved.
100%.
Douki and Kushida. Boy, this was really good. 8 minutes and 32 seconds. And the thing about this one, Kushida, like I said, knows that he can't fly with Kevin Knight and Lio Rush. He doesn't have that speed anymore, that type of thing, but he knows he's a great worker. He also has something that other people don't, which is that MMA type of training. He's been doing the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu heavy right there. So he's brought a lot of that into his Best of Super Juniors game. And it is really made for a nice little bit of varieties. You have these kind of ground-based matches in a tournament where you used to just see air show after air show after air show. I like this a lot, and I think this match was terrific. He used a ton of grappling here. It was almost all submission and grappling between these two. The crowd was actually very much behind Douki in this match.
Mm-hmm.
And Kushida played to it. And there were a couple of moments in there where I thought, you know what? He ain't a bad heel, actually.
He was a completely different personality than I've seen him in a very long time. Between NXT and what he's been doing, kind of like, I don't want to say spinning his wheels, but he's not been in the main event scene much in the junior heavyweight division. And this feels like the first time they put a spotlight on Kushida as Kushida in a very, very long time. And what we saw was a mean old man Kushida.
It was. And then Douki managed to sneak the victory on top of it. Kind of got a flash pin. We did a roll up and got him there. And so that contributed to the story, too, of Kushida having a slow start, which I do not think is going to have a slow finish. I think Kushida is going to be the spoiler role this year in a lot of ways. But, this was a terrific match. So this one was really the first one. I mean, the Ishimori Taguchi match I thought was very good, but it was telling the story of that Taguchi's not clowning as far as just the first really good wrestling match of the tournament. Like I said, there aren't any bad ones, or maybe a couple, but that's due to booking more than anything else. But this was the first really, really good one. I enjoyed this 8 minutes, 32 seconds there. So, and Colin did too, said Douki Kushida was great. I agree. He also said it's a shame that Speedball and Rush can't be permanent additions to the New Japan roster. And well, I agree, especially about Bailey. He's been really good, but I think Leo is close to that. I think we're going to be seeing Leo a lot.
I think he's as close as you're going to get to like locked into that company right now.
Yeah, maybe not Zack Sabre Jr. moving to Japan permanent, but I
feel like he's at Tamatonga level of tied to that company.
Maybe. Yeah, it could be. It's such a great spot for him. It's a place where his talents are appreciated, and his size doesn't work against him, which it certainly would with anything owned by anyone named McMahon. And even in AEW. And AEW is going to be an interesting thing right now because you can get lost in the shuffle in AEW, but they're about to get 2 more hours of television nationally. So, AEW is an interesting spot, but even then the size thing, like in New Japan, it's not an issue at all. Not an issue at all. So he can really shine here in a way he struggles to in North America. So, and we're about to get to him here in a little bit. But first we get to Master Wato and Francesco Akira. This was pretty good too. Now here's a guy here, man, Akira having a heck of a tournament. Just everything he touches is good. I love
his finisher, the knees to the back of the head.
It's a Meteora to the back of the head, and
he didn't get it in this one, but
that would make him Michael Cole's favorite wrestler. Remember when Michael Cole was calling like 5 or 6 different moves Meteoras? He just saying it so much. He just was. Gonna say
it was his go-to call for the women's wrestling. She hit a Meteora.
It's a Meteora. It's not a Meteora, Mike. It's not. Just like all of a sudden he gets into those grooves where just like remember how almost everything was an acai moonsault for a while because he figured out how to say acai and he was so excited he just said it all the time. We're like, it's not an acai moonsault. It's a cabrata to the outside of the ring. It's a cabrata to the outside. He doesn't know what a cabrata is yet. But Master Wato defeated Francesco Akira in this one. Got Resentimente, which I don't think I'm pronouncing right. I try. It's just a tough one. Resentimente? But anyway, that's the pinning combination that he has. He caught Akira in it for a bit of a surprise. But most of the match was Akira being one step ahead of Wato, but Wato always kind of staying out of it. And, we talked about how Wato, we thought, stepped up at Wrestle Kingdom and did a good job. There is still a gap between Wato and the very top guys. And Colin kind of has it again. Someone tell me why Wato is always near the top of the card in these shows. I don't get it. They do seem to be putting him a little bit deeper in the card than they used to. He used to be kind of in the opening couple matches. And I think it's just because, Geto sees something in him. And this was a good performance. I thought it was pretty good. I don't have a problem with it, but I understand that there is still a bit of a gap between him and the very top guys.
There's going to come a point where Wato's going to move out of the junior heavyweight division and he's going to move into the heavyweight division and he's going to be in the middle of the card, just like he's in the middle of the junior heavyweight card. And to be in the junior middle of that roster means you have to be exceptionally good because there are so many people after your spot. Even if he's not showing it on a night-to-night basis, Master Wato has all the credentials to be on that roster, and being in the middle of the road in that place, he may not be a guy that's going to be sought after in AEW or WWE or anything like that, but he has the potential to carry the division if he is given that responsibility. And there could be circumstances that lead to that. But I'm not necessarily at the point of wondering why he's in the position, because I think that when he's been asked to step up, especially with Kushida getting the hand, foot, and mouth disease, he more than delivered.
Up next, we had Leo Rush against Show, and this now. Okay, let's talk about it. We got to talk about house torture here. And so, Colin wants to disband them. I wouldn't argue with you on that one. It's very frustrating, isn't it? Let's talk about what they're doing. Mostly short matches, thank God. Evil is on this tour for reasons known only to himself, and he has been attacking Show's opponents. He's been interfering in the matches. He's basically been the manager in this whole thing. And There's a lot of wrench stuff. There's a lot of just silliness, and we're going to get to some that really went over the top with Hiromu right there. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So far, Leo was able to overcome both of them. Let's see, how did they do it here? There's just a lot of Evil distracting the referee, but he managed to lure Show into crashing into Evil Keystone Cop style. Show ended up shoving the referee into Leo, which allowed Evil to come in and double team him. But Leo countered by doing a little back kick between the legs to Evil, as Evil was holding Leo Rush. So he ended up taking a shot below the belt. And then he managed to get the wrench away, hit them both with the wrench, and then hit a coup de grace for the victory. So on top of these kind of plotting, not particularly well executed referee finishes, there's it's not even working all that much for Show, which is part of the story that it doesn't particularly work. But it was oh, there it is. I mean, the matches that I didn't enjoy in this tournament, they all had two things in common. It was Show and Evil.
The takeaway of this was they booked Leo Rush to be a main event babyface win. No amount of bullshit was going to get in his way from defeating these two guys. And that was a Cena level aspect of overcoming the odds. So just think about that how they're positioning Leo Rush in this whole thing.
Brad has it pegged here. He said that you mentioned that the shows are coming in at under 3 hours, thankfully, because these are pretty fast-paced shows, not particularly long matches, just because they have to get through 10 of them in a night, and that's helped the cards. But Brad mentions the shows are even faster if you fast forward through the House of Torture match. So there you go. You can get a lot done there. So very true. So after that, we're going to move along quickly here. We have Robbie Eagles and Yo. These two actually really meshed. This is a good match. Went 13 minutes. Robbie is working the leg a lot because he has gone all in on the Ron Miller as his killer move, and it's a good looking one. And he also has a Shining Wizard knee in there too. So there's always the threat of the Ron Miller special. Then he has this kind of a strike, the Shining Wizard with the knee. But this is a real good match, and it was even through most of it. And Yo is working on finding his edge, and there's been some progress made. I'm not going to say he's all the way there, but there's been some progress made in Yo getting a bit of an edge to him.
This was one of those matches that was good, but I think that they both had better matches later on in their campaign. So if you need to move through matches, this one is skippable if you're not a completist, and you can move on to the next.
We're going to go to the next one, which was Titan and TJP. And this was the first air show of the tournament in the 8th match here. There was a lot of jumping, diving, and flipping in this one. It was very entertaining. Only 7 minutes, 12 seconds, though. Titan caught him with that submission that he does, which is the leg lock where he bridges back and then pulls on the neck. And interesting thing to me here, something that has gone through this tournament. TJP showed sportsmanship afterwards, gave him a grudging handshake. TJP's not really working heel, while his partner, Francesco Akira, still has that kind of a snotty heel attitude to him, a little thing there. So a contrast between TJP and Akira. And I'm not saying that they're any dissension. They're just working differently. TJP is not working heel the way Akira is in this one, but real good. And, Titan knows what his timing is terrific with some of his spots and his flips and dives, and TJP is very smooth in the ring. So fun 7 minutes here.
I really enjoyed it. Titan and TJP worked surprisingly well together. I think Titan is going to have a really good campaign. Make sure you don't miss this one. They're a good sampling of what they both have to offer in this tournament.
And then this one, of course, former tag team partners, former junior tag team champions, Yoshinobu Kanemaru and El Desperado, 14 minutes here. And they played the match that they knew each other very, very well. That was how they worked it. A lot of spots working to the stretch muffler, the numero dos, as he calls it. He also has been using the Guitarra de Angel a lot, his kind of version of the Blue Thunder Bomb. And that's been a big part of Desperado's matches in this tournament. He attempted Pinche Loco here, but Kanemaru turned that back into a figure four. And of course, Kanemaru has developed a very effective figure four, and it's been booked to be very effective. He has a lot of ways to get in and out of it because he's a veteran and he knows all these different combinations. And this played into it very nicely. An attempt at the pinche loco, but Kanemaru grabs the leg, manages turns into a figure four. Desperado had to tap out. We warned everybody, Jeremy. Upset special right here. And sure enough, they did it. And not only that, they, similar to Kevin Knight, planted the seeds for a weakened leg on El Desperado, just to put him in a little bit more jeopardy against some people he may have been heavily favored against.
I do believe this was the first time that if you wanted to play the Kevin Kelly calls a submission a business decision drinking game, this is the first time that you would be taking a shot. Desperado tapped out in a match that he normally wouldn't because it was the first match in his campaign, and it was a business decision to keep himself healthy. I like the logic.
Yeah, and it's going to play into future matches as well. So then we had Mike Bailey and Hiromu Takahashi. Boy, you know, if you're going to make a first impression, make this one. This was fantastic. And of course, Hiromu Takahashi is one of the best workers in the world. But this was just great. And this was the other upset special we talked about. We just thought, you know, they're going to launch Bailey. And of course, they like to put the favorites behind the 8-ball a little bit. This also played into something that's going to come in a couple of matches later for Hiromu Takahashi. But this was a lot of fun. All Bailey shine very early. So they were going to show everybody exactly what Bailey can do by having him sort of dominate the early part of the match against Hiromu. And the crowd enjoyed it. He does have, and it's put best, awkward charisma. There's just something strange about the dude, but it works, doesn't it? It just works, doesn't it? Not too many people can pull off the mullet either, by the way, and he's doing it.
I'm not sure he pulls it off, but we're just gonna keep.
There's something about it. I'm here.
It's divisive.
I'm here with it. Strikes, kicks, flips, everything. He threw everything at Hiromu here, trying to impress the crowd of Korakuen, and he did the job. He countered a time bomb, so they threw everything at the Korakuen crowd. Moonsault from inside the ring to Hiromu on the outside. I love that move. So he'll jump up to like the middle rope inside the ring, moonsault to his opponent standing next to the ring outside of it, and it looks cool every time. And he's very accurate with it. It's really good move there. And that'll become a staple and a hit throughout the tournament. We're going to see that a lot. Hiromu dynamite plunger for 2 on this one. They traded near falls. Bailey won a kicking exchange. He does a really cool thing where his opponent is in the corner and he will do 2 spins into a kick to the head. And again, his accuracy is impressive. This guy's pretty precise with these moves that could go a little bit wild, but they don't seem to. He seems to be very, very precise and accurate with this, which is good because he's kicking people in the head. And then he has this move called the Ultimate Weapon, which is a shooting star press to the knees, where he lands on his knees on the opponent, which can't feel great, but looks terrific. He got the win over Hiromu Takahashi.
So bad.
And boy, this guy's really good. And Bailey made a really good impression. We knew Mike's good, you know, but seeing him in there with Hiromu, and I was very gratified. It was a gratifying feeling to see him make this good of a first impression, and he's going to be a big part of this tournament.
This was the biggest match he's ever had in his life, correct?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Impact, GCW, Indies, maybe Mexico, like the most eyeballs at one time watching him in a big scenario main event. This might have been it for him. And boy, welcome to the show. You delivered. And I have to say, Paul Fontaine might make a liar out of me because he thought Speedball could win this whole thing. And while I don't think so, I can't completely rule it out. So that's how good of a performance that Speedball had, is that he made me a believer in the fact that even if he doesn't win it, he could win it.
Backstage comments, Kushida chased Geto and Connors out of the interview area because he was pissed off that they assaulted his tag team partner. And then we also heard from Douki and Kushida. They had the same trainer in Mexico, which I was unaware of. They actually worked with the same people sometimes in Mexico. And Kushida said he had a lot of respect for Douki, which is something that's been a bit of a theme lately. A lot of people giving Douki their props. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later because Hiromu Takahashi told the story about it as well, about how Douki persevered through the wonders and wiles of Mexican independent wrestling, which is a pretty rough road that he managed to navigate on the way to New Japan. So, yeah, there you go. And there's, for the folks watching here, there's the B block after night 1. So,
that,
go ahead.
And then we can move on to the next one.
Yeah, and we're going to pick up the pace here a little bit. We can't talk this much about each one, but we wanted to cover some of the early impressions that we had. On the 13th, they went to Nagano, home of the Winter Olympics that one year there, not too long ago. Attendance here was 702. TJP was on commentary for this one after working his match early, and he was excellent.
He was great on commentary.
Really was. A lot of good. There have been a lot of good people on commentary. It's funny that if you just let people flow, and you don't yell at them in their ears constantly, there are a lot of guys in wrestling that can contribute a lot. And Kevin Kelly even mentioned it. He joked about, hey, there's no one yelling in our headsets right now. So it just shows you that it can. There are a lot of people that can do it.
Brief aside, a lot of credit to Kevin Kelly because he has multiple dance partners and he is able to work with everybody and have a clear, concise broadcast, getting the points across and getting the people on the microphone with him also across.
And we opened this one with a terrific match. Colin agreed. He said this match was awesome. I agree with you, Colin. TJP and Kushida, this was just under 10 minutes. More grappling between these two, but just really, really good, smooth wrestling by two guys. And, of course, TJP's been around longer than people realize sometimes, 20-year veteran almost, really. And these two were like butter, and they just moved in and out of each other's holes right there. And TJP, again, similar to the story in Kushida's first match with Douki, he managed to get an inside cradle just as it looked like Kushida might get him into a submission hold to tap him out. So he managed to escape with the win right there. So Kushida's system not paying off as of yet as the story goes, but he gets a win here. Just a terrific match and really enjoyable to open this show.
Really setting up a lot of contenders for the junior heavyweight tag title scene after the junior heavyweight tournament.
Another trope of Geto's booking, of course, Geto being the booker for New Japan Wrestling in addition to manager. There's one block where there's a haves and a have-nots, so to speak, where there's a couple of people that are scoring a lot of points and you don't know who's going to come out of it. And then the other block is just a mess. It's just everybody's within a couple of points of everybody else. We're starting to see some of that here in this tournament as well. Kanemaru and Dan Maloney, another quick one, 5 minutes, 42 seconds, and another example of Kanemaru establishing his bona fides with that figure four where he slipped it on Maloney kind of out of nowhere right there, the wily veteran outfoxing the younger one. And they also mentioned that Kanemaru struggled with new people last year, like the people that were new to the tournament and people that he was unfamiliar with. But this year he manages to get the jump on Maloney. And it's part of the story of Just Five Guys revitalizing the career of Kanemaru and making him a bit of a stronger contender here. So yeah, good stuff.
Random thought as you were talking about this. I don't have much to add, but do you think that Kanemaru should rename his finisher to the figure five?
Maybe you should. That's an interesting thing. There's already a figure eight. Charlotte has that.
That's what I'm saying. He's just five guys. It's the figure five.
Yeah, that's not bad. Leo Rush defeated Taguchi. Taguchi got some stuff in, but this is mostly just Rush out quicking him there and going into the story again. No more clowning from Taguchi in this one. And just for the sake,
about 5 minutes longer than it needed
to. Robbie Eagles then defeated Clark Connors. Now this was a bit of a surprise here, and not the result totally, but just kind of how it ended up happening, I guess. Eagles got the Ron Miller special right out of the gate after Connors jump started him. Eagles didn't really sell that long. He kind of got back into the groove with that. Ron Miller special. It was a fun match though, and Connors ended up hitting 2 spears and it looked like it was all over. And then Geto was verbally calling for no chaser from outside the ring. No chaser, no chaser. You could hear him. And by the way, as always, Geto cursing in English, a highlight of any New Japan show.
A joy.
A lot of that as well. And but Connors got cocky, didn't listen to Geto. And Eagles ended up wrapping him up in a Kuma roll, basically, to win it. If you're a Stardom fan, you know that's Kaguma's finisher right there. Brad agrees with us that TJP on commentary for this one was really good. And he hadn't gotten to commentary quite yet. Kevin was handling this himself, but he enjoyed the whole Connors gets cocky and gets beaten by Eagles there suddenly.
Very interesting that the way that they booked it was that Robbie barely escaped with his life in this match.
They kept Connor strong, didn't they?
Yes. And I've been paying attention to the visual cues here and there and looking at that bracket. And These are two guys that are going to matter when it comes to the final night. Of the 2 spots available, they will both be fighting for a spot. It seems very clear to me.
Next one is another match that's worth going out of your way to see. Francesco Akira and oh wait, did I miss one?
Maybe
I did. Mike Bailey defeated Show in the next. And this is another one that basically followed the exact same pattern of the night before. Evil with a sneak attack and interference, but Bailey overcame it all, knocked over both of them, hit his ultimate weapon move, and won. So basically the same match as the night before, just with Mike Bailey instead of Leo.
If you have the YouTube graphic, I keep laughing every time I see Show, and it's just wide-eyed, like, I'm insane, and I'm going to wrestle a match with you. Okay,
it's like he took both MDMA and meth before taking that photograph, is what it looks like.
He's like, you want to see a house of torture? I'll show you a house of torture.
Francesco Akira and Kevin Knight was up next. This was a match you should go out of the way to see. The Bailey match was Show. Bailey did what he could. Francesco Akira and Kevin Knight. This one was terrific, though. 8 minutes, 40 seconds, back and forth. This really could be the future of junior heavyweight wrestling right here between the two of these guys. Both very, very young. Both have everything. They can talk.
This could be the future of wrestling, my friend.
They have attitude. They have their characters down. They have charisma. I can't think of anything these guys don't have. There's things they can polish, but there isn't anything they really can't do. And this is just fantastic. Akira ended up hitting that fireball move, the double knees to the back of the head to win.
How old is Akira again?
23.
23? Sure.
Just 23. Yeah.
Knight isn't all that old either. So
no. Yeah, a lot of great
potential.
Stuff.
Everything in the future. So good. One of the highlights of this show.
After that, we had Taiji Ishimori getting a win over Titan. This was another excellent match. Ishimori worked the shoulder a lot, of course, because of that bone lock move, and he did manage to tap Titan out with it. 9 minutes, 24 seconds, and Titan got a lot of his stuff in as well. Ishimori can work just about any style, so a luchador is no problem for him. He knows how to make Titan shine. He really did, and then got him into that bone lock after having laid the groundwork with the shoulder work earlier on by ramming him into the post and things like that. So good stuff, and it puts Ishimori on a winning streak to open the tournament.
Good stuff, man. Let's keep moving.
El Desperado and Bushi. These two, we've watched these guys wrestle each other probably 1,000 times. Of all the matches they had, this was one of them. And it was fine. It was fine, but they were under 10 minutes. It wasn't their night to shine. They weren't in the main event. It was in the middle of the card, and they wrestled like it. El Desperado got the win here, too, using Guitarra de Angel and Escalera. So,
behind the scenes talk, these are the two guys that I will always mix up when I'm trying to talk between stables. And I'll say, you're Desperado, and all of a sudden, and when you put them together like this, it's like their masks are inverted negatives of each other in some way, shape, or form. So I feel a little bit justified on this. Anyways, let's move on. They did not deliver a bad match.
Douki and Hiromu Takahashi did, however. This one was done with Douki working the Douki Choki several times in this. That's kind of how he just kept getting closer and closer to knocking Hiromu out with that Douki Choki. Hiromu ended up hitting a dynamite plunger, and as they call it, a Hiromu-chan bomber. It's the pumping bomber from Shingo Takagi, but he calls it the Hiromu-chan bomber. Douki hit 2 strong pumping bombers as well. So they were working pretty stiff on each other here, but this was excellent. Suplex de la Luna, which is a great looking move where he kind of has the guy in a straitjacket type of suplex with the other guy's legs up wrapped around his knees, and it just looks pretty devastating. But that was reversed into a time bomb by Hiromu for the victory, and gives Hiromu off the schneid, so to speak. Lost his first one, but picked up the second victory.
The story that the first 3 opponents of Hiromu in this tournament more or less have his number is a very interesting story, given most of the time in the junior heavyweight division, he's kind of run the table, and he is not running the table at all. And he may not even make it out of the bracket. I tend to doubt that he won't, but there are people that are threatening to bump him from it completely.
And in the main event of that night, Yo defeated Master Wato in 18 minutes, 12 seconds. Wato worked the arm. Yo worked the leg, hit the direct drive for the win. The semifinal between Hiromu and Douki was the best match of the night, but this was really good. This was a strong match here. And, Yo is brought up earlier, Brad mentioned it. He's been showing a lot more charisma since first teaming with Lio Rush. Love to see it, says Brad. I agree. I think he also showed a little bit of an edge in this match too. And I do think teaming with Leo has helped. So he got the win there over Wato. And again, I don't think this match would have been in a main event position in other years. And it probably should have been semi here to Hiromu and Douki. But it was still a real good match. He did a good job.
I think it was kind of a little bit of politics to make sure Yo got a end of speech opportunity at some point during this tournament and knocking that out. Yo, they mentioned it in the match. He's been wrestling a lot looser than before. Like his moves were very tight and every planned kind of thing. And he got a little bit more carefree attitude. And I think that's helping with the presentation of the matches as well.
Worth mentioning afterwards, by the way, Hiromu Takahashi talking about Douki. And I keep bringing this up, but Douki took a really hard road through Mexico here. Being an indie wrestler in the first place is challenging. You have to book yourself. You have to do all of your own travel. You have to keep track of absolutely everything. And for Douki to have gone to Mexico, and then you have to get a luchador license, which is not like getting Kentucky State Athletic Commission when I was a manager for a short time. I was manager for a long time, but not. I just did the low levels of wrestling, and you just had to fill out a form and send them $20. It was just a money making operation for the most part. Not true of a luchador license in Mexico. You have to go through drills. You have to show that you can wrestle. You actually have to do that. It's basically an audition to get this license. He did all that without an affiliation from a major company. He worked for years on the independent circuit, just trying to find work wherever he could and getting himself booked. He would try to get onto the CMLL roster, and they kept rejecting him. And Hiromu told the story after this show. He said that he would call Douki on the phone, and they would talk in Mexico, and he would play a little game called Hiromu Tells Your Fortune. He would try to cheer Douki up by saying, "In your future, I see you passing the test next time and joining us here in CMLL," and all that. And it would kind of cheer Douki up when he just kept getting rejected. Through all of that, he just kept persevering. And he might still be on those indies in Mexico had El Desperado a few years ago not broken his jaw just before Super Juniors. So that was why they brought him in. Desperado couldn't wrestle for a few months because he busted his jaw in a match. And all these guys that had worked in Mexico, Kushida, Desperado, Hiromu, kind of went to bat for Douki a little bit and got him the gig. He stuck. And now he's in a major company where you actually get a nice bus to take you to the shows, and you don't have to go through the back roads of Mexico.
For him.
Don't have to work 3 times a night and all this. But you hear this as a pattern with people that knew him in Mexico. A lot of respect for Douki just for plowing through all that and never stopping, never quitting, never getting discouraged. And it's paying off now, and he's doing very well in New Japan. So another note from this show, both members of Catch 2-2 beat the members of the Jet Setters in singles matches. So that's an obvious rematch coming for that. So there you go. Next up, when we're going to have to pick up the pace here a little bit now. But Nagoya on the 14th. Attendance at this show was 1,599. Good crowd. It's a big building, but it's a good crowd. I went back, Jeremy. This is the largest crowd for wrestling there since Dragon's Gate Fantastic Gate in 2019. So
when I was looking between the attendances between the 3 nights, the last night show wasn't posted yet. I was like, "Oh, that's a big number."
1,599, and for biggest crowd in 4 years, and it was for a very big show for Dragon's Gate in Nagoya. That not just a regular one. So strong crowd for this one, and we saw Kevin Knight get the win over Kanemaru. So Knight started up 0-2, Kanemaru started 2-0. Knight is banged up in the storyline, but he managed to avoid the figure 4, hit a big DDT. And according to what Kevin Kelly was saying and Chris Sampson, his first singles win in over 600 days. So that's the plight of a young lion in New Japan Pro Wrestling, isn't it?
I mean, congratulations, Kevin Knight. At least you have a title to hold.
It will not be his last. And then after that, we had a show getting the win over Taguchi. He had to beat somebody. So this was a thing where...
just explain the scenario and let's move on because there's not commentary. We don't have time to talk about it.
Okay, all right. Well, I mean, the referee got knocked out, of course. And so Evil jumped in and said he'll be the referee. And Taguchi didn't really trust him at all on that, but Sho had also pledged that he was going to play it straight. No one believed him. And sure enough, as soon as Taguchi was properly distracted, he hit a low blow, and the referee came back in, counted the pin on him after that. So there it was.
It was exactly what you all thought it would be.
Clark Connors basically blew out Bushi in this. I mean, Bushi got some moves in, but there was no doubt who was going to win this match. 2 more points for Clark Connors in the next one. And then we were going to
angry after losing the last one.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Taiji Ishimori beat Douki in a good match. I got to mention this, Brad. I prefer the commentary onion to anything with House of Torture. Apparently, a box of onions showed up at the New Japan office, and Kevin Kelly commandeered one, and it's been his broadcast partner until Nagoya and until Akita. It didn't go to Akita. I think it probably went bad by that point. But Kevin Kelly said the onion doesn't work the small towns, only the big towns. So there you have it. So they had an onion at ringside. It was sitting there with a little headset on. So it was he may be going a little stir crazy there, Kevin. We got to keep an eye on him. But yes, that was the commentary onion. And so we went on to Douki and Taiji Ishimori. This was a terrific match here. This was a really good one. Long Doki Choki spots here. He even hit Daybreak on Ishimori. Tried the suplex de la Luna, but Ishimori landed the divorce cord on his shoulder, and of course that perfectly set up the bone block submission. So good stuff there. Taiji Ishimori off to a very strong start in this tournament. I think we may have shorted him a little bit before this tournament.
They were talking about that on the broadcast as well. Everyone seems to not take him as seriously as they should.
And the next one, Francesco Akira and Robbie Eagles. Terrific match here, 12 minutes. And Colin just found out what TMDK stands for. Yeah, the Mighty Don't Kneel. And that's Shane Haste and Mikey Nichols really kind of came up with that one. And it has become the name of the entire group. And, of course, Robbie Eagles, the latest member of TMDK. But Akira got the best of them in this one. There were big moves all over, but this was
great.
Really good. And Eagles has become very clever in finding ways to get in and out of the Ron Miller, that leg lock he has. And they all make sense, and they're all good in context. His timing of them is excellent as well. So, but in the end, he ended up succumbing to the double knees to the back of the head. And Akira's having good match after good match after good match.
Their sequence of wrestling in this was really crisp. Everything just moved so flawlessly from the next to the other. When you want to talk about like a good junior heavyweight match where you're just like, show me 2 junior heavyweights doing their thing and it looks great, show them this match.
Similar story for Kushida as the first 2 matches here, where he grappled with Titan and worked the arm, but Titan caught a big DDT off of a rebound from the ropes, then hit the double stomp, the big double stomp for the win. So at this point, Kushida was 0-3, and things were looking very bleak. But I have a feeling a turnaround is coming. And good match. But it was to serve a purpose, which was put Kushida in the deep hole. And after that, we had Dan Maloney and Yo. Yo very cocky and dismissive of Maloney in this match early. Had a bit, like I said, the edge thing. He was acting a bit snobby in this one. Like Maloney wasn't quite on his level, but he found out he was.
Him.
And Maloney is a bigger guy, so he won the striking battle, and he led to that driller killer for a win after he hit a big gore spear on Yo. And Yo began doing a lot of Tenzan and Kojima moves, including Kojima's catchphrase after landing the elbow in the corner and throwing the guy out. So that's a little strange affectation that would continue on to his next match, where he's starting to do trademark moves. He also did Mongolian chops.
This was the one where he looked like he was dressed as John Cena.
A little bit, yeah, as the jorts.
Attitude adjustment phase.
The jorts, yes.
Ooh,
yeah.
That's a choice.
Yeah. There you go. And Brad mentions the full catchphrase for TMDK, by the way. We are the mighty, and the mighty don't kneel. So, yeah, there you have it. And, they're cool, according to Prominence Flair. So, a lot of love for TMDK. Next, TJP and Mike Bailey. TJP worked a Pinoy submission a lot for this one. Bailey with a moonsault knee out of a sunset attempt. So, TJP tried to get him in a sunset flip. Bailey turned that into a moonsault, crashing his knees down into TJP's chest. I'm glad everybody's okay with taking all these knees from this guy, because those look like they hurt, every single one of them. Springboard DDT, a swinging DDT. So there was a lot of DDT work from TJP on this. and I'm just enjoying all the acronyms. 2.9 count on that. And then TJP, however, missed the Mamba Splash, which is his version of a frog splash. That led to the spinning kick in the corner and a flamingo driver, something new from Bailey, for the win on this one. Another really good match, very, very smooth. And Bailey is getting over with every crowd he goes into.
They both are. TJP and Mike Bailey are just, the crowd is reacting to them both almost the same way, even though TJP has been there a while, and can't say it's not deserved. They're having a hell of a tournament, the both of them so far. Bailey especially. Holy crap.
The next one was El Desperado. This is a semifinal in Master Wato. Desperado's leg gave out early in this one. Call back to the Kanemaru figure 4 in the first match. And the story of this one, though, Chris Charlton was on commentary, oddly enough, even though this was in Nagoya. He usually only works at Tokyo's. But the story of this was that Wato is brain-locked by Desperado. This is the guy he can't quite figure out. And he seems to be a little bit brain-screwed by him. There's some sort of mental block when it comes to Desperado, according to that. I will say that I think Kelly and Charlton are pretty rough unnecessarily on Wato at times right here. I think he's better than they give him credit for. That's just a little bit of a disagreement on how to perceive Wato between me and them, because they really do crap on him pretty hard in commentary. And it really turned up in this one here. Again, I'm not saying he's on the level of Desperado and Hiromu, but I think he's, well, they make him sound like a clown, and I don't think that's fair. Code Red was turned into the Vindaval. Wato got a TTD, which is an interesting form of a tombstone. But he missed the twisting dive. He managed to kick out of the Guitarra de Angel, but a scramble led to both of them being up on their feet, and then Desperado just punched him in the jaw, knocked him silly, and from there he hit the Pinche Loco for the win. Desperado got it 14 minutes, 10 seconds, and a solid win, but it got Desperado back on the up and up.
I think Master Wato needs to goatee. That's it. That's all I got out of this. He needs a goatee to change his look, mainly because if they're going to keep undercutting him, treating him like he's a kid's character, then he needs some kind of change, and he is deserving of more respect to that. I kind of agree with you with the Charlton and the Kelly criticisms. They're not warranted, and what I said was like, he just needs to stop looking like a kid's character. And if they're not going to get rid of the Wato gimmick, they need to make him look more like some type of combative wizard. I don't know, something. But like a Doctor Strange goatee might help. I know I caught you off guard with that. I saw the look on your face, but I actually had a logic to it.
No, that's okay. Like I said, we like to keep it fresh for the show, and that's about as fresh as it gets. Leo Rush and Hiromu Takahashi. This is my favorite match of the tournament. Hiromu versus Leo.
100%.
So far, this was 18 minutes and 11 seconds of absolute sublime wrestling. We knew it was going to be. They've already had a junior title match that was wonderful, but one of my favorite things, Leo and Hiromu fighting on the outside. He puts Hiromu in a chair at ringside.
Oh.
He runs all the way around the ring just to get that momentum up. Hiromu popped up and gave him the overhead belly to belly that he usually does into the corner, but he did it onto the chair. Ouch. Just looked rough. But they did it correctly, but that's a rough bump. The speed of these two is incredible. Hiromu Takahashi, I believe, still holds the record in the Noge Dojo for the fastest sprint. I believe they do like a 40-yard dash or something. But he has the fastest one in dojo history. Leo Rush is even quicker than he is. So these guys were just going a mile a minute here, and it was great. Leo hit 3 consecutive tope suicidas to the outside on Hiromu, who was just bouncing up and getting knocked back down again. Hiromu got his knees up on a big splash, but Leo has managed to escape the time bomb that came from that. So he stayed in the match. Hiromu-chan bomber did connect. That's the big clothesline there. But a second one was turned into a Spanish fly at the 15-minute call. A frog splash was countered by Hiromu into a cutter. Don't see that one from Hiromu too often right there. Leo managed to hit a poison rana, then the rush hour, which is that bouncing stunner that he does off the ropes. That only he can really do. And then he hit the final hour frog splash. A lot of frog splashes in the tournament this year for a win after headbutting Hiromu off of the turnbuckle. This was fantastic. And it sets up an interesting scenario here, Jeremy, where not only has Takahashi lost twice, but He's lost to Mike Bailey and Leo Rush, which means he's got serious tiebreaker problems later in this tournament.
He very much does. If you look at that bracket, and we're giving you the scores as they're going throughout this show, Hiromu Takahashi is in a hole, and there is a lot of talent in that bracket that could knock him out real quick. And the champion, after dominating for years, getting knocked out in regular bracket play would be quite the story.
It would. So we're going to move through Akita now. 762 fans here. That was this morning's show. And no record of any shows in this building, Jeremy, since 2017. 6 years since there was a show in this building. But a bit of a disappointing crowd, 762. But, the business has its ups and downs. And it was a weeknight and things. And no Okada, Naito, Tanahashi on the card type of thing. But nevertheless, they got a good show. Yo defeated Clark Connors. Clark is starting to show a real propensity to beat the living hell out of his opponents after the match, no matter what. This is another one where he won with an O'Connor roll. Yo did beat Clark Connors. And then he made the terrible mistake of coming back to the ring to ask the referee to raise his hand, where he was attacked and beaten down with a chair, similar to Kevin Knight earlier in the tournament. So Connors showing that nasty side. And if that's what this tournament, he's not going to win this tournament, I don't think. But if this what it establishes is that Connors is just a dangerous guy that might just go flying off the handle and injure somebody, that's a good story to tell, and it could have benefits down the road for that guy. So, yeah.
I just think it's interesting that in every match they're making a point to make Connors the focal point of the story.
Teton then defeated Ryusuke Taguchi. He came close with the Dodon, but Teton got his submission in. Teton, a very quiet 3-1 in this tournament, and a pretty good match. Man.
Better record than Hiromu.
Better record.
Stablemates.
Best of, the next one, Robbie Eagles and Bushi. This was pretty standard stuff here. He managed to get Bushi with the knees there. So, Eagles is also rolling along at a fair clip. This is more his block there is the one that's more jumbled up. So the other one has the haves and has-nots. We saw TJP and Douki. Good match. TJP jump-started it by hitting a sliding drop kick as Douki was standing by the apron. Then he did a frog splash for a very quick 2 count. Tried another splash, but he landed in the Douki Choki. So some fun stuff back and forth there. Later on, after escaping Suplex de la Luna, he managed to get the Mambo Splash for the win. So Douki is having good matches, just not getting the results quite yet. But I do feel like he's on the upswing there overall.
Catch 2-2 being portrayed very strongly at this point in the tournament.
That continued to the next one when Francesco Akira defeated Dan Maloney. This was the first interfaction match. They're both members of the United Empire in storyline here. This was good. It was quick, and Akira just keeps having good match after good match. So 8 minutes and 20 seconds. They didn't have a ton of time because there were a lot more matches to go. But, Akira very much in the mix.
I really like the story in this that the assumption was Dan Maloney was bigger, stronger, faster, and had his number, but Akira still beat him, and that was the right call.
And Brad enjoyed this one as well. He thought Maloney looked his best in the match, and he did, and that's no small credit to Akira. Just 100% the kind of tournament he's having. Very good stuff. And so Kushida defeated Mike Bailey. Now, here we go. Bailey came into this one undefeated. Kushida came into this one winless, I believe, didn't he? Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
So,
and Kushida the spoiler.
Yeah, exactly. So this might be the beginning of the turnaround here. So Kushida tried to ground Bailey with grappling because he's doing the jiu-jitsu stuff. Bailey at nice spot there where he kicked the post when aiming for Kushida. Kushida dodged his leg when they were fighting on the outside of the ring. He kicked the post, and of course that damaged the kicking leg there. Bailey worked the arm. More MMA stuff in this one that Bailey is actually quite good at. A kick from Bailey in the ring teased a knockout. They teased a knockout with one of the Bailey's head kicks. And Bailey later hit the spinning kick in the corner, but he missed the Ultimate Weapon shooting star press. And Kushida got the heel hook and tapped him out. And so he had the damaged foot from kicking the post. Then he ended up in the heel hook, a little more than he could take. And again, the business decision came into play. So Kushida, first win, Bailey's first loss. And yeah, Colin mentions that I hope he wears shoes after today's ring post spot. That had to hurt. Yeah, indeed. But again, he's very precise. He didn't kick it that hard, even though his leg was moving very quickly. This guy's got a lot of excellent body control.
100% the real deal.
Colin also mentioned that he was a little bit surprised that he lost this early in the tournament, but I think it's just kind of the bringing him back to the pack a little bit and then starting the push for Kushida, who I think is going to go on a win streak.
Yeah, I think Kushida was set up to fail, so he can succeed later on. There are going to be ebbs and flows in this tournament, and there's one bracket where there's a couple people that are rising out from the top, leaders of the pack, and then there's another one where there's like 7 people all in the mix with each other, and so the narratives in these stories, night 4 out of 10, we got a long ways to go and some twists and turns ahead of us.
So that Kushida Bailey match is worth going out of your way to see,
Yes.
and so's the next one. El Desperado and Kevin Knight. Didn't go long, 8 minutes and 42 seconds, but boy, was this good. And Knight is just so athletic and impressively athletic, where he hits that drop kick. He can jump up and take a guy off the top turnbuckle with a Hurricane Rana from a standing position. And Desperado worked through the numero dos several times to try to ground him, eventually hit Pinche Loco for the win. Kevin Knight is going to be a big star, isn't he?
Absolutely. He has so much potential, and I feel like we are not able to truly tap into how much like potential he has when we're talking about it on a show like this. We've compared him with Carmelo Hayes and the other guy on NXT as like a comp, but there's a lot there to look forward to. And I'm glad that we're here early on and early adopters in Kevin Knight. As for the post-match, Desperado tapped on that belt a little bit and seemed to indicate that there might be something there. Who would be his partner?
That's the question, isn't it? He's in a faction that doesn't have a lot of people in it, so we're not sure.
That should be a head scratcher, interesting / keep an eye out for that one.
And then after that, we did have Hiromu Takahashi and Show. Now,
okay,
this whole thing. This was probably the most entertaining version of the shenanigans, but what they did was Show attacked Hiromu in the interview area, post-match comment area, a couple of nights before, and choked him with a wrench, beat him down, and kept repeating to the reporters, Hiromu Takahashi is unable to appear tonight. I'm paraphrasing. And the winner by forfeit is Show. Said this, and apparently there was a swirly given to Hiromu in this whole thing that I didn't see, thankfully. If that happened, I didn't see it. So Evil comes out and just tells Milano Collection AT to get up, and he takes the commentary spot. Then Show comes out in street clothes, and he has a fake letter, obviously fake letter, that he wants the ring announcer to read under the threat of violence. Ring announcer reads it. It says Hiromu's not coming. Show wins by forfeit. So they declare themselves the winner and start to walk up the aisle when, of course, my God, that's Hiromu's music. And so that happens, and Hiromu comes out taped up, like he has been taped to a chair and managed to escape
House of Fire.
and he comes out with his arms taped up, manages to attack both men. The Young Lions help him get the tape off, although except for the piece that's in his hair, that couldn't have been pleasant to deal with. And so he manages to get out of this. There's 7 minutes and 50 seconds. In that time, there is loads of interference. But in the midst of it, Hiromu manages to get the wrench and act like Show hit him. So he does the Eddie Guerrero thing there. Everyone has to do a little bit of Eddie Guerrero in their match. Apparently, that's the rules these days. He managed to get the wrench, hit Evil with it, and then he hit the Time Bomb 2, then Time Bomb 1. Because, screw Show. He gets both finishers and pinned him right there. So, that was it there. And so Hiromu Takahashi got a win over Show. And thankfully, he's back on the up and up after some early losses. But 2-2, Hiromu Takahashi at this stage.
I would say don't think too hard about this match and move on.
Brad's wondering was Show's letter signed by Epstein's mom. Maybe it was. That was
deep cut for the old
That
folks.
Is. Going way back there. And Miguel Rubio, by the way, says this tournament is turning me into a big Kevin Knight fan. Love the guy. Yeah.
So good.
Very few guys have taken off this quickly. I mean, we saw it with Akira, though, didn't we? Where a guy just came in and just melted right into the scene as one of the top guys, and we're seeing it with Knight. So good to know that the future is as bright as it is. After that, Master Wato defeated Yoshinobu Kanemaru. And again, another match that would never have been a semifinal. This would have been the first or second match on the card a couple of years ago. Here it is as a semi. And Resurgence, and then a spinning kick, hit the high angle German for the win. And it wasn't long, but it was pretty good. And Wato is being treated with a little more respect this tournament.
Yeah, it feels
at least from the booker, not the announcers, but the booker.
Feels like an odd couple pairing of two people that wouldn't normally have a match with each other or have a reason to have a match with each other, and they did, and it was fine. And there will be a time where they have a reason and a better match with each other. But for a mid of the tournament, totally fine.
And it ended with Lio Rush and Taiji Ishimori, and I don't have to tell you to go out of your way to watch this match, do I? Really? I mean, this was a battle of undefeateds, so it had major implications for the standings. And two fantastic workers. And the first 15 minutes of this match, again, smooth as silk. Can't describe everything, don't have time, but really excellent work from both of these guys who just know how to do everything and play to each other's strengths beautifully. Go and check it out. It was very smooth, very well worked, crisp, tight, the whole thing.
That finish had a real estate in my head.
It was a rush hour countered by Ishimori getting the knees up. Leo kicked out of a reverse bloody Sunday, and then he went for the lung blower move, but that was countered into a DDT somehow. It's difficult to explain, but it's a way that probably no one else would have
used his own momentum, almost like a Canadian destroyer, but he never hit the ground. And Ishimori hit the ground, and then he proceeded to. How did he finish this guy off?
He hit the rush hour, which is of course the bouncing cutter. I guess it's more of a stunner as he kind of lands sitting up. So he bounces into the ropes and hits the stunner. Then he hit a final hour frog splash for the win. That was just a work of art to hit. It looked fantastic, and that was the pinfall. 16 minutes 56 seconds, felt like 5 minutes.
The last minute literally defied the laws of physics. I don't know how to explain it other than that. Go to Reddit. Go find the last minute of this match if you have not seen it. It is fantastic.
And Brad mentions that Leo got the Tanahashi treatment from the crowd post-match. Fans were giving him babies. That's true. That's literal, as a matter of fact. There's the old phrase that they were so happy they were throwing babies in the air. Thankfully, that didn't happen. But Lio Rush gave his post-match speech saying that this is all about the young people, this is all about the fans, and he pointed out a baby in the front row. A couple actually had two very young children there in the front row, and afterwards Leo was baby facing to the point he went out there, picked up the little baby, said it was beautiful. The couple, the parents were just giddy with that their guy was holding their child and hands it back to him, and it couldn't have been more of a baby face there in both literal and figurative sense.
So we are almost at the halfway point in here. We have Lio Rush with 8 points, Taiji Ishimori with 6, Mike Bailey with 6 points, Titan with 6, TJP with 4, Hiromu Takahashi with 4, Sho with 2, Douki with 2, Koshida with 2, and Ryusuke Taguchi with 0. That's in the A block. And then the B block, we got Errol Desperado with 6. We got Robbie Eagles with 6. We have Court Connors with 4. Dan Maloney with 4. Francesco Akira also 4. Yoshinobu Kanemaru 4. 4. Master Wato 4. Kevin Knight 2. And Bushi 0. So talk about that log jam.
One minor correction here. Sorry, the Akira has 6.
I apologize.
That's all right. Akira does have 6. So again, we're almost everybody except Bushi within 4 points of each other. So that one can swing any direction between now and the 2 shows in Osaka next week. So we're going to go very quickly here into what's coming up. Shows almost every day on tomorrow, Thursday, Friday, and then we get Saturday off and then Sunday. And so some of the key matches here tomorrow in Sendai at Miyagi, actually, Rush versus Douki. We're going to see Kushida versus Ishimori and Yo versus Desperado. I'm going to have to go through these quick, Jeremy. Sorry. On the 18th, we have Mike Bailey and Douki, Kushida and Hiromu, Rush versus Titan. Aomori on Saturday. This is going to be a good one here. Hiromu and TJP. Ishimori versus Mike Bailey that night. That'll be a lot of fun. And then on Sunday, back at Korakuen Hall. We don't have a full card for that one listed necessarily, but we can probably put together a lot of it. We know that we're going to see Hiromu versus Taiji Ishimori, El Desperado versus Francesco Akira, and Lio Rush against TJP. That should be a hell of a show. And then, of course, on the 22nd and 23rd in Osaka, only one block is going each night. That's one time when we will see the blocks separated there. And by then we will have an idea of who's mathematically in it and who's mathematically out of it. And we will talk about that, of course, heavily on the next show. On the 21st, we also have Resurgence. So that's going on a Sunday as well. 2 shows. So there's one at Corrigan Hall, and then at the Long Beach Walter Pyramid, we will have Resurgence. Let's go over this one real quick. As you can see on the screen, if you're watching on YouTube, we got the card. Pre-show matches: DKC against Bateman, Alex Coughlin against Christopher Daniels, the Fallen Angel, Bad Dude Tito and Zack Sabre Jr. against Virus and Barbaro Cavernario. There they go. And then we have a street fight. Juice Robinson and Fred Rosser trying to settle their score that's been going on since Juice cost him the strong title. Speaking of the strong title, yeah, there it goes. Hikuleo defending against former champion Kenta in a rematch. And then the 6-man tag that we think is going to be very interesting and really just chapter 1 of something that will continue on. Kazuchika Okada, Tomohiro Ishii, and Rocky Romero against Jon Moxley, Shota Umino, and Wheeler Yuta. Very curious to see how that all plays out. Also, the finals of the IWGP US title contender tournament. Hiroshi Tanahashi will face Will Ospreay, and Ospreay, first match since injuring his shoulder, really, and quite a while for Will. And we know Tanahashi is back from the rib injury. And then, of course, the NJPW Strong Women's Title Tournament. Mercedes Moné against Stephanie Vaquer, Willow Nightingale against Momo Kogo, and then the 2 winners will face each other to become the first Strong Women's Champion. And Jeremy, there were events in Stardom that made me rethink this thing a little bit.
Talk to me about it.
There is a match coming up in Stardom between the Red Belt champion, the World of Stardom champion, Tam Nakano, that's the top title, and the Wonder of Stardom champion, that's the white belt, held by Mina Shirakawa. They're going to wrestle each other, and it is title for title. And they are going to, they say, combine the titles. Now, Scott Edwards from the 5-Star Joshi Show, who's forgotten more about women's wrestling than most people ever learn, he thinks they might do a 30-minute time limit draw in this match because they do 30-minute time limits instead of 1 hour. And he's not sure they're going to combine them. But if they do, then this Strong Women's Title Tournament makes a little bit more sense to me. We wondered why this belt even existed.
Okay.
If they're going to combine the red and white belts and then have the IWGP women's title as sort of another important championship. So instead of white and red, you have a dual champion for a while. Well, then you need another singles title for people to fight over. If they bring the IWGP title home with Mayu Iwatani, you have that. Then you can do the Strong Women's title, and that one would be the one that stays stateside more. Maybe
are they merging the titles, or just person is going to hold both titles?
Double champion is what it sounds like out of this. And like I said, Scott thinks they might also do a 30-minute draw, and they aren't combined at all on this one. But I do think now that Moné is just going to win this belt, and this is going to be the one that Moné carries around. That's just my little thing. So
I don't doubt it. I do think it will come down to Moné and Nightingale, but after Nightingale kind of lost and was forgotten in that in an AEW post-match angle with the Outcast or whatever you want to, I think it's the Outcast. It just said to me, it's like, if this person was meant to have a big upcoming month, this is not the way that they would be programmed to be shown in a scenario. And it could be a scenario where she's close and not quite enough, but the more that we get closer to it, the more that the logic just says, you want credibility on this title, put it on Moné.
And Colin also believes they shouldn't combine the red and white belts. He would hate that. Yeah, it doesn't really seem to make a whole lot of sense to me either. So maybe they'll just do the 30-minute draw. Make sure you listen, by the way, to the 5-Star Joshi Show with Scott Edwards. He will keep you very well filled in.
When are we going to find out when that plays out?
That's in late May. There, that match. I don't have an exact date in front of me.
So after Resurgence?
No, it'll be, yes. Oh, excuse me. Yes, it will be after Resurgence, before Dominion.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm getting so many shows.
Cross.
Yeah. And so I'm assuming that Will Ospreay is going to beat Hiroshi Tanahashi and just trigger this whole thing with Kenny Omega and the rematch somewhere, whether it's at Forbidden Door 2, whether it's at Wembley Stadium, something with Kenny Omega in there with Will and Kenny. That's what I'm thinking. And like I said, I feel like that 6-man match is it doesn't really matter who wins and who loses that one. The question is what the angle is to get it to Dominion, in my opinion.
I said it before, and I feel like we are rapidly getting to a point where some of those Blackpool Combat Club guys are going to be in New Japan for some chunk of this summer. And that's going to be interesting with AEW having 2 shows of programming now with Collision and Dynamite that are going to require a lot of top star talent. But I kind of think that, there's a reason that you were getting Moxley involved in May out of nowhere. And Omega is making comments about Okada. And Okada is not in the main event scene of New Japan. And Will Ospreay is suddenly everywhere. And he's been announced for All In at Wembley before even members of the AEW roster know that they are going to be on All In on Wembley. All the big players, all of their stuff has all been figured out, and they all have their blueprints laid out. We are just in a position of waiting to see exactly what that is. And it's kind of exciting.
I'm very curious to see how this Collision show affects things with New Japan, the ripple effects. And the reason I say that is AEW had an issue where they had so many people on the roster that weren't getting on television, that they were, putting them on Dark, and they were putting them on Rampage, and some guys were even having trouble getting on Dark Elevation, and they were paying a lot of people to sit around or have matches that basically nobody was watching. Although, I mean, those YouTube shows had a little bit of a following. Now they have the Ring of Honor idea. They're going to have 2 more hours of national television with Collision. They're going to have more money. We don't know how much, what Warner Brothers paying them. No one does. If anyone tells you they do know, they're making something up.
More money than they have now.
More money than they have now. And more programming than they have now. More hours of programming.
More synergy.
Perhaps. And it also
might just streaming.
But it also means that foreign wrestlers are going to be in more demand than ever. And I'm very curious to see how that lines up with, is AEW going to be taking more guys? Is there going to be more stuff like what we saw with Jay White, where he's going to be mostly AEW and then maybe some stuff with New Japan? Is it going to be more of a challenge for New Japan to keep foreign talent because AEW is going to come knocking? And if AEW continues to come knocking, WWE is, because they can't help themselves. So with that in mind, will it be more of a challenge to keep good foreign talent? I'm curious to see how it plays out. Don't know. I don't think it will be.
I think that there's still a boutique aspect of New Japan where if you want to hone your craft and you want to be like, you want to be with the best doing the best, like New Japan product is cultivated towards a delivery of that kind of wrestling. With AEW and WWE, you are still catering to a more generalized audience that is used to something different with their wrestling than what the Japanese product is giving. So it's the ebb and flow, and it's the tide changing of the talent. There is going to be talent in New Japan that is going to see the money signs and end up going to AEW. But at the same time, we're talking about guys like Kevin Knight and Francesco Akira and Clark Connors and this whole new generation of people that may end up staying with New Japan for a considerable amount of time, or they go somewhere else and then somebody else comes in. But the business model for New Japan has me pretty confident that even if these top stars go, that they will be able to fill the gap somewhere.
I got to think Kevin Knight's going to be getting a lot of offers.
Oh, absolutely.
Contracts up. And then they're probably for stateside too. He might be a tough one to keep. But and one other just note right here from a little bit of a critique for Lio Rush. We've been praising him, but did you hear the female scream Leo's name all the way through the show? It was kind of off-putting. Yeah, he said also Leo's got to stop screaming. So yeah, it's a vocal thing. It's a very vocal thing for Lio right now.
I'm having a really good time in New Japan right now. I'm super excited for Dominion. Even though it feels like it is the bottom of a list of a lot of shows that feel very important right now. It's it's 3 weeks away, but it feels like it's 2 months away with the amount of wrestling on the slate. We got Resurgence. We got the rest of the Best of the Super Juniors tournament. I'm going to Double or Nothing in Vegas, and that weekend I'm going to have to watch Night of Champion. The final to the Best of the Super Juniors is the Saturday night, Sunday morning of Double or Nothing. And so it's just a whole deal. And then we're going to come back here. We're not going to skip a beat. We're going to talk that Tuesday about all of it. And it's going to be nuts, man. It's going to be wild.
Some other news and notes, by the way. Speaking of Dominion, the main eventer of Dominion, Yota Tsuji, who is, of course, coming back from excursion, just finished his up in CMLL. He challenged Gran Guerrero for the CMLL Traditional Heavyweight Championship. He put over Gran Guerrero on the way out, so we were wondering if it was going to be a belt collector scenario or if it was just him finishing up, and it looks like they decided to finish up Yota Tsuji by having him put over the heavyweight champion in the main event at Arena Mexico. So again, certainly CMLL thought very highly of him and put him in a big spot, and he did the job on the way out, as is wrestling tradition. And he is headed back to New Japan after having main evented one of the most important buildings in all of wrestling. So again,
he's
very
all
much
done, go home.
Yeah, it looks like that's the end of it here. And as he comes back full time to New Japan, which may not bode very well for Sonata's IWGP World Heavyweight title reign.
What a great juking move by New Japan. They have him like hanging out in Rev Pro for like a year and a half. And then they start doing these videos. And at the same time, they send him over to Mexico. So to throw everybody off the scent that it couldn't be this guy, he just went over to this new promotion over in Mexico. And then they put him in the main event. He gets the whole tour of what he needs to over there. And then he's put in the main event here for the second biggest show in New Japan. The opposite of the Douki.
The opposite of the Douki. Yeah, he's definitely fast tracked, but when you get a look at him, I think we see why exactly.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. One other thing I wanted to note, just because I'm not going to do a full history segment and things, but wanted to note one thing, that May specifically is the 40th anniversary of IWGP as a concept. So in May of 1983 is when they had the first International Wrestling Grand Prix tournament. There is another show on the Fight Game Media Network called Write This Down with Fumi Saito and Justin Nipper, and I recommend anybody that's interested in Japanese wrestling check that out. They recently had a history of the major titles in Japan, and also things like the WWE title in Japan. A lot of great stuff. They mentioned that Antonio Inoki had the idea of the IWGP becoming an alternative world heavyweight title, and gathering up promotions that weren't part of the NWA or weren't part of the WWF and maybe establishing this thing. And that never really came about. The way the IWGP did come about was in the form of what we would consider now a G1 type of a tournament. And it was in May of 1983, 40 years ago, when that tournament took place. And so it was called the International Wrestling Grand Prix. The first one was won by Hulk Hogan, who clubbed Antonio Inoki as Inoki was on the ring apron. Inoki splattered, took a terrific fall to the floor, and was counted out. And Hogan beat him and won the first IWGP. They did a whole thing with bringing an ambulance into the sumo hall for Inoki, and it got over. Hogan was already over. He was already the number one babyface in the AWA at the time. He became a monstrous star in Japan. They put him over in the IWGP, and of course, at first, the IWGP was not a belt to be defended. It was just a tournament, and it wasn't until 1987 that they made it the top singles belt in New Japan, something to be defended after winning it. So, 40th anniversary of IWGP as a concept, and now, of course, it's the calling card. The IWGP is the tag team title, the junior heavyweight title, the heavyweight title, all of these things. So just a little note there for history. 40 years of the International Wrestling Grand Prix.
I got a little bit of housekeeping for you.
Please.
Episode 46 of Speaking of Strong Style. Mm-hmm. But some of you may not know that for the first few episodes, we were bi-weekly.
What were we thinking?
So that means our first episode was May 17th, 2022.
How about
Congratulations, Steven Conway. We have done this for 1 year.
We've been doing this show for a year. How about that?
So you're speaking of the anniversary, speaking of strong style, we survived a year with each other.
We survived a year. And we survived this show because we managed to get all of that stuff in there. It was
come a long way.
Yeah, I needed to get my cardio in for this one. This was a lot of talking in a short space. We're going to be doing this again next week. We'll try to get everything a little tighter there and make sure we talk about the matches and the important ones. We hope we pointed out the ones to chase down. And Brad saying congratulations to us. Appreciate it, man. Thank you. And again, you guys are the reasons we do this, and we appreciate that you guys take your time out of your week to sit in with us live here. And if you download the show later and watch it later, we appreciate you as well. It's really been a wonderful experience for me, and a big part of it is the interaction we've had with people here on social media and everything else. It's just been overwhelmingly positive. Thank you so much for that.
This audience and other important people listen to what we have to say, and I love it.
Yeah, it's been a great experience, and to all of you guys, thank you so much for it. It's made my life better. It's made Jeremy's a lot better. This is a really fun part of my week, putting the show together and doing it here for you guys. So thanks.
Thank you guys. Glad there's an audience for us to bullshit for 90 minutes every week.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. And Miguel saying, I want you to know that we're live, pal, and speaking of strong style become a big part of my Tuesdays. Thank you, Miguel. That's really a great compliment, and we really do appreciate it. So thank you. So, all right. Anything, Jeremy, before we wrap this one up and we go lay down for a while after watching all this wrestling and talking about it?
I am Doug, speaking of strong style. You can find me at Jer Finestone at Twitter. Sometimes what I have to say is important, but most of the time it isn't. What about you?
All right, I'm at Steven Conway 88 at Twitter, ringsidereplay.com. Next week, more of the best of the Super Juniors, setting up the finals. We'll be talking about Resurgence. So many things going on in wrestling right now. It's such an exciting time. We'll be here to go over all of it with you. So until then, we will see you very soon. Thanks for watching Speaking of Strong Style.